Hi there, I'm Kevin Benedict, Senior Vice President of Solution Strategy here at Acrolinx, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today. My guest for this episode is Chief Marketing Officer of Acrolinx, Chris Willis. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to see you again.
So, Chris, I'm calling from Boise. You can tell this is what everyone from Boise dresses like in the morning, but where are you from?
We're in Burlington, Massachusetts, and Berlin, Germany. Currently, if you look out the back window and see gray and cold, it could be either place, but today I'm in Burlington.
Very good. So Acrolinx, Chris, you and I have known each other for many, many years here, and Acrolinx is really, really interesting here. So for those that aren't aware of it, give us a little, just a little snippet of your background and how it came to be.
Sure. So Acrolinx is essentially the world's only AI-driven active content governance platform. What we do is work with the world's most recognizable brands, large enterprise, and they use this platform to increase content clarity, consistency, performance in one department like tech docs or marketing, or across the entire enterprise to standardize voice across an entire business. With the hope of accelerating and driving down the cost of content production while increasing the value of that content to the business. It's an interesting place. A lot of businesses out there have tacked AI onto their message in the last year because it's a cool buzzword. And for us, AI isn't the thing, but it's a thing. And it's something that we're very far ahead. We're decades ahead in the use of artificial intelligence in textual analysis and linguistics. Our natural language processing engine really combines machine learning with knowledge-based AI that's been trained on billions of sentences of real customer deployment over the life of the product. So essentially that means that we're one of the only products out there right now where AI is being used by real people every day. And the interesting thing about that is that the product keeps getting smarter as it learns each day. So that's at a very high level.
So what kind of company backed this kind of creative idea?
So the business, Acrolinx, was formed out of a German AI lab, DFKI in Germany, a decade and a half ago by a team of PhDs with links into the University of Edinburgh and Stanford University to solve the hard problems associated with content creation. So the ability to read content at scale and align that content with a content brand or business strategy. So the way that the platform works, the easiest way to explain it is that every business, every large enterprise has, let's take a brand strategy as the example. So they have a brand strategy, and maybe it's written on a whiteboard, maybe it's something that they have documented in a slide deck that they use, but it's not very actionable. It's a thing that we know. We use these words, we have this tone. One of our customers uses the word squishy. Part of their brand is squishy. How do you action on that? And what our platform allows you to do is take that brand strategy and essentially digitize it, make it actionable. And we then connect to your content repositories, whether that's your web CMS or a actual file directory on a server somewhere, or wherever you're storing content. And the first step of using this product is to identify the gap between your strategy and the content being created. Is your content being created to support your business strategy? And that in and of itself is a huge benefit to the enterprise. Am I creating content that works the way that I want it to?
I'm just thinking about that. It seems like that would be one of the hardest use cases of AI. I mean, there's all kinds of, fairly simplistic variations of AI and applications of AI, but you're going straight to the heart of things: content, language, meaning. You chose like the hardest use case you could go at.
And that's our value. It's also creates a bit of a challenge. We solve big problems that people don't think there's an answer to, and we don't fit a category. So if you talk to Serious Decisions and they talk about content marketing technology. We're not part of that. By choice, I don't want to be on that particular report because we don't sit next to Kapost and Contently and companies like that. That's not what we do. We solve this bigger issue of your strategy and the content you're creating and the alignment between those two things. So that first stage is understand the gap. Am I creating content that meets the expectations of my brand strategy? The answer is generally no, because your authors are all over the business now. Everybody's an author, whether they're a full-time author like a tech document creator, or they're a part-time author, like they're part of product marketing, or they write blog articles, or they're just a smart person in the business that has a point of view. Content's coming from everywhere. And let's augment that problem by saying there are companies that spend billions of dollars on agencies, and agency content is pouring into the business. And how is any of this content aligned with the voice of my company? How is it aligned with the terminology of my company? Is it supporting my brand? Because the brand I've created, I spent a lot of time on, right? I did brand studies, I did focus groups, I created this voice of a business that I want us to represent at the top levels of my business. And I'm not doing it. So I've identified a problem now. I see a gap. The next step is to close that gap. So moving forward from the identification of the problem, we provide actionable ways to solve that. So one actionable way is through something we call our sidebar, the Acrolinx sidebar, which runs within your authoring tool, whatever that might be, whether it's Google Docs or Word, or it's WordPress, or it's Drupal, or advanced products that very few authors actually use. The sidebar opens up right within there. And the sidebar is trained on your business strategy. They understand your brand, your language, your terminology, your tone, the clarity level that you're looking for, the education level of your readers. And as it reads the content being written in real time, it's providing feedback, objective feedback. It's based on that business strategy and saying, you said this, I think what you meant was this. So an example of my past life, I was involved in a mobile application testing company. And just in the description of the company, I said the word test. Mm-hmm. As we made a shift from selling to QA to selling to DevOps, we needed to stop saying test and start saying quality. And now I've got writers all over the world that are creating content for me. And it's very easy to talk about our mobile application testing process. We don't want to say testing. So content came in all the time with the word testing in it. And nobody was asking for terminology updates. Nobody really cared to think that way. So it took manual reading to go through it and rip all those tests out and put quality in and try and make the sentences work. Very simplistically, the sidebar says, hey, you said test. Didn't you mean quality? I feel like you meant quality. And it gets fixed. And that's one little thing that takes away hours of review and correction and iteration. And when you multiply that across all the things that are being written, all the ways that they're being written off brand, we start to see real benefit and time savings and cost savings. But that's not enough. So we've taken your business strategy, we've digitized it, we've found the gap, we've found a way to solve and shrink that gap. Now we have analytics dashboards that allow you to see that improvement as it happens and start correlating improvement to business results. If my content meets the needs and expectations of my brand, is it performing better? Are we getting better business results? Are we seeing more conversions? Are we seeing more sales on the website? If we're trying to provide customer support, are we seeing more online support? Are we seeing less phone calls into our support desk? If we're trying to create, legal language, are we seeing less risk associated with our content and less iterations between legal and, for instance, marketing? And that allows us now to increase the overall business benefit. So a use case would be, think of an insurance company, right? So they have an online product, because insurance products are super easy to understand and buy. The problem they were having was form attrition. I come on, I want to buy an annuity, and I get to the form and I look at it. I'm like, I have no idea what this says. And I get halfway, I get my name and my social security number filled in, and then I walk because I don't understand. What if you can write clearer, more concise, easy to understand, on-brand content that allows the form to be filled out. What's the business benefit of that? And the business benefit of that, in that case, was hundreds of millions of dollars of assets under management that were being lost to attrition because the forms weren't clear. When you clarify, all of a sudden, you get more completions, and this very real benefit occurred for the insurance guys.
Wow. So, Chris, talk to me about what does it mean to set up? Kind of, you gave an example of setting up what your brand means, maybe the mission statement, what you represent, etc. But what does that actually look like when you get more in depth about the messaging that you want for your companies, the brand for each of your product lines? Is this like some very detailed screen? I don't know. What does it look like?
So my head of product marketing likes to think of it as the brain of the product. And it's essentially teaching it what you know. So you want to configure the platform to your specific language requirements relating to your brand, to your audience, to compliance, to findability and precision. You're going to determine terminology and keywords and style and tone of voice. You're going to allow that to adopt content to regional language differences. You're going to define different requirements for different audiences, from content types, or even different products. So I was speaking to a pharmaceutical company, and they were very specific. They said they have 137 different persona voices because each drug has multiple targets that they sell to and they speak to differently. So you're going to speak differently to a mother about a pediatric drug than you are to a 55-year-old man about a 55-year-old man drug. I'll leave that up to the imagination. And so they needed to have a top-level filter of this is how we talk as a business, and then allow that to feed down into the personas. And this is how we customize our voice to these personas. And then you think content goes through. So if there is a drug that has multiple audiences, you take that single piece of content, feed it through the first filter. Now it sounds like us. Feed it through the second filter. Now it sounds like the person that I'm targeting this towards specifically. So I've changed the way that we speak. I've changed the terminology. I've changed the tone for that audience. And out comes something tailored to us versus a young mother.
Got it.
So that requires that the company understand those things, and that the company is very involved in that process of digitizing that brand. And that process, like any other process, can take weeks or months, depending on the complexity of the brand that we're digitizing.
So, Chris, when we look at personas, do people know what their personas are when they first contact you? Or do you say we need to understand the persona, therefore you need to go back and decide what it is? How does that work?
In most cases, based on the size of our customers, they do. So we tend to sell to companies that get and understand their marketplace, and incidentally, companies that understand AI and the use of AI. So of the top 20 global software companies, all 20 of them are customers.
Wow.
And they know as part of their DNA who they're communicating with and how they're communicating to them. And it's very important for them to get that right. So the first implementation will usually be a top level global persona, and then they start drilling down into those segments of the people that they specifically talk to. And that's where things start to get really interesting, because you see that really advanced functionality of customization to those personas with that top level brand associated.
Got it. So is the AI engine that you guys have in your platform, now what do you call it, a content analytics platform, or how do you define it?
We're using right now the idea of an active content governance platform, and I'll tell you why. So if you had asked last year, governance was one thing that we provided, the ability to better manage your overall content program. And it sat next to guidance, which is helping people be better writers. but at the end of the day, and goals, which is the customization of the strategy. But as we moved into 2018, what we realized is that really all of that is part of governance. When you think about governance, governance gets a bad rap inside the business. Governance sounds like the word police. It sounds like some overlord watching over you, but that's not the governance that I mean. I mean visibility and transparency and collaboration and automation in a language that allows you to talk about value across a business. And that's different than what people initially think. And the bet that I make with prospects is that you think you don't want or have content governance, but I think you're wrong. And I'll bet you $5 that you're wrong. And I usually win the $5. Now I don't take it, and if I do, I'll donate it. But anyway, I bet that consistency matters in your business. You've built a brand, right? And you believe that you should use it. I'll bet you also believe there's a right way to do things, and diverging from that erodes value and return. And I think that you probably also agree that things that get measured get managed. Everything can be measured, and that if you get things right at the source, it's going to save time and money. So what it comes down to is you do have a concept of governance. You're just not being deliberate about it. And so let's replace deliberate and do not with passive and active. So there's a passive governance approach and there's an active governance approach. And we've spread that across 7 or 8 different categories of quality, KPI, guidance, performance measurement, process, editing, and best practices. Say this is what passive looks like, and this is what active looks like. And active, by being more active, by providing for instance, this active quality support. So supporting writers and editors at all skill levels, both inside and outside your enterprise, with the right tools to be on brand and on message, on strategy. A concept of scored good and scored done. If I asked you right now, Kevin, I want you to write me something, and hey, if you could, make it good. The hell does that mean? Like, how do you do that? That's very subjective. And now if I'm having a good day and I like you and I think that your tie looks well, I might say, first draft, this is good. Or if I don't like bow ties, I might look at it and say, I don't think this is good. That's not interesting, and it's not scalable. It's not great for the enterprise. Now, an author, when they hear about AI, is going to say, I don't want a computer reading my content. Do you want me reading your content? I just told you I might not like it because of your tie. An objective rules-based review that has a numeric definition of good. Good is an Acrolinx score of 80. That means that you are pretty on brand. You're pretty on target. And you created content that fairly well represents our content strategy. How do you argue with that? Who wouldn't want that? It takes all the emotion out of it. It takes all of the personal emotion and baggage of the people that review your content right out of it. And by the time those reviewers actually get your content, you can be largely assured that they're going to agree, based on the score at the top of the page that I get on every blog article that's submitted to me. You can be pretty much sure that they're going to say, okay, this is good. Now let me actually read it for content, which is something that we don't do anymore, right? If somebody gives you something to review, if I hand you a document and say, can you review this? Once you get done fixing my spelling errors, my grammatical issues, the formatting problems, you haven't read it, you just fixed the garbage in it. Right. And what I want to be able to do is allow you to actually read what I said and agree or disagree with the points in the content, not whether or not it's well written.
Got it.
So this whole active content governance thing that we're talking about, like that's about creating better content that's on brand, non-strategy, because when you do that, it's increased conversions, it's enhanced end user engagement. So a lot of time talking about this digital shift, it's all about end user engagement. It's about increasing time on website because all of a sudden your content is readable. A big business case for us is reduced cost of localization. So we don't do machine translation. What we do is source content. We clarify source content. The way that I write is exactly like I talk. And now try and turn that into 5, 10, 15 different languages. It's impossible. Half the time I'm making up words. So if we can create rock solid, concise source content, think about how much less it's going to cost to translate that. Expedited time to market. We have customers saying, I want to do 10x the amount of content that I did last year with the same level of quality, if not better, in less time with less people. Oh, well, that sounds easy. And then finally, decrease content waste. Serious Decision says 65% of enterprise content goes to waste anyway. If you're not creating content that's on brand, on strategy, it's probably going to go to waste.
So, yeah, and it deserves to be that. So yeah. You talk about the AI and the role that, considering you're seeing it really change it, or is it just guiding a human that needs to go back and apply what your system has flagged?
So it's a little bit of the way that I think about the AI thing, and we get that question a lot, is talk to me about the AI in the tool. And it's in a bunch of places, but the easiest way to describe it is to tell a story about Maurice. Maurice is a guy, real guy. He's a human editor. He's based in London. He was a contractor for me, total generalist, linear process. There's just Maurice. So what that means is that he knows what he knows and what he can learn from reading my content. There's time zone issues because he's in London and I'm in Boston. He's not in my business, so he's not a domain expert, and he's not really very scalable. Artificial intelligence takes that process to the next level. Maurice becomes essentially unlimited virtual editors working in concert. They are in full agreement. They are based in the cloud. They're always on. They're taught to know my business, and they're infinitely scalable, and they continue to learn. So that means that they know what the business knows. They are always working. They're representing the brand and the voice of the business. They know exactly how we speak, and they can provide governance over all content. So that AI reaches, it's in the sidebar, it's in the dashboards we create, and it's in the brain piece of this, that strategy piece, where it's constantly learning. So as we shift the way that we speak, we're teaching it at all times. The system continues to learn as we write. And if we see trends from our authors, we can actually implement education based on those trends to then provide guidance that mirrors the way that our writers are writing. It's all based on business decisions on how we do that. Learning is completely up to the business. But that's where the AI really plays into this.
In reading about some of your products, it also says that your system looks for the tone and can guide you on the tone of your content. Isn't that starting to get into some really, it takes a lot of cleverness to be able to do tone, I would think.
Yeah, and so this comes from a world where we sort of we started in tech docs, where tone is less important, I'll say. I mean, it's very, very technical, very dry, and made a shift over time into a broader business and marketing content space. And so how do we take this content that's been very dry, very technical, written for a more educated audience in a lot of cases, and make it mass market and make it mirror the brand of our organizations that we work with. So it could be as simple as, hey, you know what, maybe a contraction might be better here. Instead of you are, maybe you say you're. Like, that's a very simple example of tone. But if a company has a really good idea of what their tone is and how they want to sound to their audience, they're able to build that in as part of their strategy creation. And the tool recognizes places where we can better align with things like sounding supportive or sounding friendly. And I mean, these are silly little trite terms that come together to create full enterprise brands. Our customers talk about being friendly. One customer talks about being squidgy. Don't know, they're British. But we can digitize squidgy, identify places where it can be added, and add that into the guidance to create content that sounds like the business. And when you're dealing with companies that are very serious about sounding like they sound, that becomes a mission critical tool.
So fake news, is there any application for some of the things that you're doing in recognizing when something's not sourced correctly or has a overly propaganda tone to it? I mean, is there possible use?
Yeah, we don't do plagiarism check. We do jargon check though, and so I don't want to sound political, but there are people out there that use big flowery words for just about everything. Best, world's most amazing, good, bad, liar, lion. Anyway, the system will pick those terms up and draw attention to that. Did you mean to be using business jargon? Did you mean to be using buzzwords? Did you mean to be using words that sound really, really trendy right now? And then it becomes up to the author to say, oh, I didn't even think about that. I should pull that out. I mean, we could be more draconian than that, but we choose not to be. We could just drop a lot of that, but let's leave that up to the writer, because at the end of the day, the writer is trying to convey a point. But yeah, I get dinged on that all the time in my writing.
Got it.
I like big flowery words, and
interesting.
Our brand doesn't.
So to me, listening to this as a content producer of videos and blogs and articles and all that kind of fun stuff, this seems just so. Where is it going to go next?
I lost the last question. You went a little blurry for a second.
No problem. I was just asking, to me, this seems light years ahead of where I am sitting in my office with my Word or Google Doc and typing away articles. So it seems like light years ahead of me, but where do you see it going in the next 3 years?
So I mean, as we continue forward, one of the things that's very important to us is being open and integrated and working within the tools that our customers currently use. So we spend a lot of time on integrations, creating tighter integrations with the products that are in use in author groups and across the enterprise. That will continue. And a lot of those integrations are available on our website to see who we integrate with today. From a base platform standpoint, it's continuing to get stronger, to grow further capabilities and move beyond. A big advancement this year in version 5.3 of our platform was enhanced analytics. So being able to go that next step and really show this wealth of information around the improvement that you get once you start pushing guidance out into your author pool. And it's beyond just your Acrolinx score. I mean, the Acrolinx score is great, and it's helpful, and it gives you sort of that guidance to understand that common measurement. But digging deeper into individual scores across terminology and spelling and grammar and style and tone of voice and clarity and informality and liveliness, to show you where you can actually improve. Like, okay, so you're at a 70 and you want to get to an 80. What does that mean? Where are you missing? We do, as we talk to existing customers and we look at content analysis, bringing them closer to their goals isn't just a Acrolinx score thing. It's where aren't you close? So, hey, y'all are killing spelling and grammar. Fantastic. Kind of that's the cost of entry. Where we're seeing issues is terminology, which seems so easy. Let's look at terminology and understand where you're missing. What's the language that's throwing this off, that's not connected, and continuing to do things in those areas to pull that kind of reporting out. Also in that analytics drop was the ability to see cost savings, to actually build in costs associated with things like the editing process, and then overlay that on top of all of the review that's going on in the tool and see real live cost savings. So that when somebody says, hey, why are we even using this? Oh, well, here's a couple $1 million worth of why you're actually using this. As we move into version 5.4, we'll be announcing actually the beginning of next month at our user conference, Content Connections, happening in Los Gatos, the second week of May. If you're interested in looking at learning more about that, it's at foc.ai is the URL for that conference. But we'll be announcing 5.4 and advanced features around findability and SEO. So making it easier both ways. So obviously pulling keywords out of content that's already written, but that's not hugely exciting. Where it gets exciting is in the reverse. It's in the fact that your agency is building ads. Let's use Google AdWords as an example. They're out there building these ads. They're identifying keywords. They have this whole campaign built out for the quarter, and they say, now I need content to support this. And the current process is take a couple keywords, tell your authors what they are, and tell them to write a bunch of blog articles and hope that they kind of connect. What if we could integrate with Google AdWords and present in real time as content is being written what keywords need to be used, what keywords are most valuable, what keywords are going to cost the least if they're integrated into the content to drive these ads. Like all of a sudden, we've changed the game and authors are able to align their content directly with existing ad campaigns. Like there's nothing else out there like that. And that's what we're trying to do, is solve these big problems. There's companies out there that solve the small problems. Like I don't need to focus on spelling and grammar. We got that. That's fine. But so does Clippy, and so does a bunch of stuff. We want to solve the problems that other companies aren't solving. And the best example of that is at my last company. We went to Amazon, showed them what we did, and they said, this is really cool. And when we left the building, they built it and released it as a product and competed with us. When we went into, well, heck, I'll say it, Amazon here, they said, wow, this is really cool. And they probably did the exact same conversation when we left. Hey guys, can we build this? The answer was probably, but it'll take a long time and it'll cost a lot and it won't be as smart, and they bought it. And there's 100 other examples of that in the software space, of companies like Google and Oracle and Microsoft and IBM and SAP and Adobe and Facebook and Salesforce, who have had that same decision because the problem that we solve is hard. Like this is a deep issue. And while I think other companies could build this eventually,
thinking about what you said.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that with a barrier to entry.
Oh, just about that, we're kind of running over each other for a moment there. I was just going to say, great minds think alike. My word here was keywords. See there? I was looking at keywords thinking, if only your system could connect into real-time keyword analytics and SEO stuff, then that would just take it to the next level. And you guys are already on it. So that's awesome.
Happening.
Oh, yeah. So this is just incredible. Thank you for sharing all of this, all of your brilliance and experience, and just being so clever about the use of AI in an area that is really pushing the envelope here. Thanks for sharing with all of us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Always enjoy this.